A big hello to you, my scent-loving friends. Welcome back to another episode of Making Sense Make Sense, the podcast that's all about demystifying the wonderful world of fragrance in a way that is fun and accessible without any snobbery, gatekeeping, or general shenanigans. I am Thomas Dunkley, and I'm your host, and I've been writing and speaking about fragrance for nearly 15 years, and in that time, I've seen a lot of brands come and go. Every now and then, there will be one that comes with a really bold statement and who shakes things up entirely. These are those brands that set the trends rather than follow them. They push the boundaries of what fragrance can and should be in a way that is exciting, challenging, and artistic. One of these brands is Born to Stand Out, and on today's episode, I speak with the brand founder Jun Lim, who you'll all be pleased to know is a fragrance nerd just like us. Now, if you're not familiar with Born to Stand Out, you are missing out. They're a rebellious brand pushing back on the idea that perfume should people please. They reject mediocrity and are bold, brash, and let's be real, a little obscene every now and then. It's a really fun brand with a line of fragrances that are graphic, punchy, and divisive. Now, I can guarantee that you won't like everything they do. Hey, you may even hate some of their stuff, but that's the point. This is fragrance created to make an impact and not to fade into the background. I'll give you one example. My first experience with the brand was in Javoy in Mayfair, where my good friend Susie Nightingale, who I'm sure you'll all know from her podcast On The Scent, encouraged me to pick up a bottle of their fragrance Naked Laundry. Okay, I shouldn't have trusted Susie, and I should have read the excited grin on her face as a sign of things to come, but I'm not that perceptive of a person, if I'm honest. Anyway, at first sniff, Naked Laundry was a perfectly lovely and sparkling and fresh and clean laundry musk, but as it developed on my skin, it became positively pornographic. Like someone had thrown a whole rugby team's worth of jockstraps into the washing machine whilst I wasn't looking. Not that I'm complaining, mind. Anyway, back to our guest. During our discussion, Jun and I talk about his origins as a fragrance troll and how he moved from banking into the perfume industry in a rebellious act against conformity. We chat about the Korean fragrance scene, his creative process, and how he's challenging the industry to become niche again. It's a fascinating chat, but before we dive straight into that, here's a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of Making Sense Make Sense is sponsored by Carium. I read somewhere that there were over 8,000 fragrance launches in 2024, with even more expected in 2025. Never before has there been so much perfume, which is a great thing. We love perfume, let's be honest. But this means it can be really hard to hear through all that olfactory noise. And now, with so much choice, it can be hard to find a new signature scent. Carium believe that scent is complex and deeply personal, with overwhelming choice often making the search intimidating and descriptions often impossible. Carium seeks to solve this and works as the scent sommelier to help decode and deepen customers' connections to fragrance. This is a unique experience where the scent sommelier helps people discover fragrances intuitively, guided by their own words, emotions, and memories, and removing distractions such as branding, packaging, or preconceptions, focusing purely on the scent and the customer's personal response. You don't just choose a fragrance, the words you use, your personal associations all drive the experience thanks to an AI model that has learned from thousands of real descriptions to understand the language of scent. From niche fragrance boutiques to partnerships with the world's most renowned brands, Carium continues to demonstrate its ability to reach diverse audiences by supporting and enhancing customers' fragrance selection experiences. The data shows a 139% increase of store visitors after introduction of Carium in the scent selection process, and also reveals a 287% increased conversion rate in store. In London, you can now experience it in iconic settings, in boutique perfumeries, and in Selfridges, making this sophisticated sensory intelligent fragrance discovery accessible. So why not pop into Selfridges or Parfum La Danse in London to see how Carium's innovative AI solution can help you cut through all that olfactory noise and discover your next signature scent. Jun, thanks so much for joining me on Making Sense Make Sense. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Thomas, for having me.
You're welcome. And Born to Stand Out has had such a meteoric rise in the industry. You've made such a huge impact on the fragrance industry with your bold olfactory statements. But you didn't start out in fragrance. You started out in something completely different in banking. But was fragrance something that was always important to you growing up?
Oh, Yes, for the past 25 years, since my early teenage, um, fragrance was the biggest part of my life. I was this young kid that was on this forum, trolling after the other fragrance nerds and mocking other fragrance brands. And I was one of those trolls. And I think the trolls still exist. But I was this fragrance nerd that's been collecting fragrance for all my life, and I've been doing this for more than 2 decades. So it's been the biggest part of my life and hobby, and hence the reason why I continue to do this.
Yeah, and it's always great to meet another fragrance nerd. I'm always happy to meet a fellow nerd. Do you think a little bit with what you're doing with Born to Stand Out? Then is that troll still alive in you? Are you trolling the industry a little bit?
Yes. I think that was one of the key reason why I started because ever since the rise of the term niche, which started back in probably 10 years ago or 15 years ago or so, um, it was pretty cool. Then nowadays, like 5, 10 years ago, it's become redundant again, as most industries are. People that still call themselves niche or brands that call themselves niche, um, they have become redundant and they are following trends. And my definition of niche is all about originality,
Hmm.
and that's what my niche is, and that's what Born to Stand Out is all about. And I guess, yeah, it is my DNA of the old troll still exists in me. And hence the reason why Born to Stand Out does the strange things that other people may perceive as trolling.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a kind of a positive trolling in a way because you're kind of
Of course.
challenging the industry, aren't
Yeah.
you?
Challenge the status quo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting what you say about niche becoming a redundant term because a lot of what we view as niche now really isn't that niche at all. The market
Exactly.
and industry definition of niche would probably be based on distribution, wouldn't it? It's a smaller distribution, but
Exactly.
it's not niche
Exactly.
ideas. And is that where you
Yeah.
think you are standing out? Is that your ideas and concepts are niche?
We're not interested in being loved by everybody, and that's exactly what I want to avoid, and that's what I try to fit in as a brand. We really want to be loved by one out of the hundreds, and if we are loved and not just liked, if we are loved by one, I believe that the impact of that love is bigger than 99 likes or mediocre like.
What I'm really intrigued about with you is because obviously you've gone from banking into fragrance, so I can see that you're wanting to challenge the status quo. You want to do something different. But at what point do you go? Do you know what? I am actually going to start a brand now. And at what point do you regret making that decision because of all the hard work? Maybe.
Well, I mean, back in 2020, I was fired from my last job at the investment bank called Nomura. Um, and it was a good experience. I was paid well with the severance, and um, I was happy after. And that's exactly the moment that I wanted to start with another venture. I did not, of course, know that fragrance was going to be another one, the next one, because I knew how expensive it is to start a brand properly. I mean, with a proper flagship store, because though you say it or you want to admit it or not, you do need to provide this experiential part of your DNA, especially in the scent profile. Because if you cannot smell it, I mean, where else?
Exactly.
Um, and it's launching in Seoul, Korea, in middle of COVID. You do need a lot of money. So that was one of the big hurdle in starting the brand. So this financial hurdle that I had, of course, there was the pay from the severance pay from firing, but I actually had another venture, which was a M&A brokerage, where I was successful for a little bit, and I quit right after I hit that target of certain capital target. And then I quit because I thought this is enough for me to start the brand and um, to start a flagship. So that's when I started. What gives me the hardships and when do I want to quit?
Hmm.
Well, um, I think dealing with people is the most difficult part about running a business. I think the only thing I want to do all day is meeting the fans of the brand and fans of what we do. That's the biggest joy of what I like. But I think I would not say or name drop anybody or specify any sort of situation. But there are, of course, multiple situations every month or every week where I'm like, am I raising a bunch of children or you have these incidents when
Yeah.
you have a company, and we're now a team of 30 people in the office, which is, large size for a niche perfume brand. And I have 40, 50 people, including the store staff. But it's a lot to handle from my perspective, and that's probably the biggest hardship for running a brand.
And I think it's really interesting you talk about those hurdles. Obviously, the financial one is a big one for anybody starting a business, especially a fragrance business, because of the all the costs associated with it. I suppose a second hurdle really almost is the concept of your brand, in the sense that there's so much noise in the fragrance
Yeah.
industry, and there are so many brands. There's a new niche brand every day. So I suppose with you, you're born to stand out. Your kind of concept is literally to try and overcome that noise. Was that a real conscious thought for you when you started?
So the reason why we named it "Won't Stand Out" is literally that was the exact idea that I wanted to convey to the people of my country, the country that I love and hate at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, because I was raised in the Western countries, including Europe and North America, where the cultural values or everyday life and the virtues are very different than how we live or how we see life in Northeast Asia, especially Korea, Japan. We see life in a completely different way. Our everyday virtues are different. And spending my teenage in Western part of the world and Eastern part of the world in my 20s, there was, of course, a big gap. And I was living there in my 20s. It was not a easy 20s. And always had this question to the people living in Korea: why do we live by this way? And I was just, the biggest frustration that I had was that people in Asia, or especially in Korea and Japan, we always try to live by this predefined path of life, which group of people call it success. And that's exactly what I wanted to say. F you, this is not the right way. And we have to celebrate and embrace the individuality or inclusivity that we're given, and cherish your individuality and originality. We're not here to fit in, and everybody should be thinking that we are all born to stand out.
And it's rebelling against that value of conforming and fitting in that's
Exactly.
so prevalent. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what I'm really intrigued about then is around the fragrance scene in Korea specifically, because I think in the
Yeah.
West we've lived under this impression, I think, whether rightly or wrongly, but that in Northeast Asia people don't like to wear fragrance, especially not heavy fragrances. But it seems that this is changing and it's shifting. What is the fragrance scene like in Korea?
I mean, just to give you a rough idea of what it is, especially for my parents' generation, if ladies were wearing fragrances, they would question if you are a hooker.
Right.
Um, that's the kind of perception that you would have, or like if guys would wear a fragrance, like, do you work in a nightclub?
Hmm.
That's
Right.
the typical question that you would have received even like 15 years ago, not too long ago, even 15 years ago. Nowadays, yes, things are changing slowly but surely. That's all I can say. And we are seeing emergence of fragrance brands. And if we look at rankings of what are the best sellers in beauty stores in the nation, you can see that everything is more like light florals, light aldehydes, and light citruses, easygoing, not complex. That's almost like a skin scent or laundry detergent scent that's not going to offend anybody. So you're really wearing the scent not for you, but for the other person. So it's, I think, the way that we see fragrance is completely opposite of well, in the Western world where we're wearing the scent for ourselves.
In the West, we don't grow up with that attitude of, thinking about the common good and, what our actions and the impact on others. We are quite individualistic in our approach. And I think that's where perfume has been really big for us, because it is self-expression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly what it should be.
Yeah. So I find that really fascinating, because you're rebelling in one way against that, I suppose, that societal norm, but you're also rebelling against the norms of the fragrance industry as well.
Yeah.
So I'd really love to hear from you. What is it in the fragrance industry that you want to stand out against?
Well, the redundancy, like I said, is one thing, and the formation of certain trend kind of drives me crazy. Of course, the meteoric rise of certain hero fragrances of the industry. I'm not sure if I should name drop, but you know the brands, and
Yeah.
which influence the others. And ever since the rise of these certain SKUs, everybody else follows up. And I mean, just to give you an example, like the recent example is with the huge success of Delina. Every brand is now coming out with Rose Gourmand.
Yeah.
For instance, there are certain brands that
Yeah.
are great, but it's very disappointing for me. They are proudly calling themselves niche, yet they are inspired by the idea and not seeking originality. So I think we really want to be this halo brand that says in niche, it's all about originality. That's where we want to be.
Yeah. And that fits across the entire presentation. Obviously, the visual identity is obviously really strong. The names are very tongue-in-cheek, sometimes quite naughty.
Yeah.
How does that... I imagine that can cause quite a stir in sort of different places across the world. But I guess that's part of the intention. You're not there to please everybody, are you?
Exactly. And, I think I want to make sure that the fragrances are evocative. And when you hear the term, you can kind of imagine something. I mean, you really have to connect the dots of your personal story to the fragrance. And you have to make, like, an easy way for a brand's perspective is to make the name easy and easygoing, easy to understand, easy to read, because predominantly, even in niche and even in, of course, prestige sector, a lot of the brands have French names. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but even for me, spending so much time in Europe, I cannot grasp, though I still live in Paris, reading and understanding French perfume names are difficult.
Yeah.
And I think for most people across the world, it's not easy to understand and connect the dots.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just high nose kind of attitude from the typical perfumery industry perspective that gives this that French name is the luxury, but that's exactly what I wanted to rebel against again.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a real, I think, historic snobbery and gatekeeping in the industry, being obviously very Eurocentric. And I find that, a really good point around the names, because that's a barrier for so many people. If you don't speak French, you have a barrier then to even understand what the name means, or even go into a store and ask for it. So as part of what you're doing, are you trying to democratize it a little bit, make it more accessible, make it, less gatekept?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes, and to a certain degree. Because our fragrances are still at a price point that is not approachable or accessible, it would be no. I mean, we are proudly using, of course, in niche, we pay for creativity, right? That's the biggest thing. But easiest way to be creative is to use ingredient that nobody else uses. And that means using something expensive. And of course, I think our brand is known as this brand that uses crazy amount and crazy dosage of oil. And for instance, with our X-ray, we use 60% of oil, which is unprecedented. And of course, there are attars, but attar is a completely different format at a completely different price point that is triple of what the perfume is sold at.
Yeah.
Where we are still sold at the approachable perfume price, but we are, selling at a price point that is still reasonable, but really overdosing and really trying to give bang for the buck.
Because that's what consumers want now. They're quite willing to pay, an expensive amount for a fragrance, as long as they get the projection and the longevity from it.
Yeah, I'm still cautious on the term accessible because
Hmm.
it is, even for me, though I buy a lot of fragrances, I sometimes look at fragrance price and I'm like, it's £500 now for what?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we try to be accessible, but it is still difficult for most people.
Yeah, and I think there's an argument for being accessible in how you present things. The price may not
Yeah,
necessarily be there, but you're
yeah,
making it so that people can understand your fragrances and it's on their
exactly.
level, and it's
Yeah,
it's something they can
yeah,
approach without fear. I think,
exactly, exactly.
which is really positive. We talked a few moments ago about self-expression, and I think that's really interesting because we're seeing fragrance now as being utilized more as a form of expression. I think it always has been, but people are more, I think, cognizant of that. You look at social media, people are talking about how they use fragrance as a form of personal style. Are you, when you're creating a fragrance, are you consciously thinking about how the consumer may want to express themselves with what you're developing?
Not at all, actually. Um, Unfortunately, not at all. Let me just explain to you how I create fragrance.
Hmm.
I don't give brief,
Okay.
so I don't brief perfumers. Um, I mean, there have been rare incidents where it's about my personal stories, but a lot of times I ask them about their personal stories. I work with a lot of perfumers, and I ask them about. I briefed them about the brand DNA. I asked them about what is niche for them and what they want, what they wish exists in the world, which they could not release with anybody else. So we want to be this platform that releases something that nobody would ever dare to release. That's exactly what I want to make out of Born to Send Out. But yeah, that's our approach, carte blanche.
So I imagine the perfumers love you then because you're just letting them do what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Letting them do what they want at a price point that is unlimited,
Hmm.
at a dosage that is crazy. So, in terms of creativity, I give them the platform to for it to be maximized.
So part of what you're trying to do then is you're trying to create scents and smells that haven't existed before. That's a big thing for you.
Exactly, exactly. But I mean, how we define scents that never existed before, that's of course very subjective. But I leave that to the perfumers.
So they're leading on that, and you're shaping and guiding and
Yeah.
developing that alongside them.
Yeah, it's mostly my feedback is it's not edgy, it's not special, it's not original enough. I mean, that's kind of the feedback that I always try to give them.
That links into not pleasing everybody, doesn't it? Because I think if you a sign of a collection that I think is probably not a great fragrance collection is you go in and you love every single one of them or you enjoy every
Yeah,
single one of them. I
yeah,
think actually not everybody's tastes are the same. So if you've got something where you are maybe putting some people off with one fragrance,
yeah.
but also they might love another, I think that shows that there's a real, I suppose, creative approach and bold, innovative approach, I think.
One of my favorite saying is the most personal is the most creative, and if we, that's exactly what I tell all my perfumers, and I want them to be as personal as possible in the inspiration, in their stories, so we come up with the most creative idea.
And you've had quite a prolific output up to date. I think I counted about 42, 43 fragrances in the 3 or 4 years you've been around. You must be really busy. How many fragrances are you working on at any one time? And how do you decide which ones you're ready to launch?
Always in the pipeline. There's a lot because there's not really a brief, that there's always a proactive submission that's given to
Mm,
me almost every day, actually,
mm,
from at least one house. So there's one submission, one set of submission, and one set of submission is could be as small as three, or it could be as much as 20 to 30.
mm.
So on a yearly basis, I am submitted about probably thousands and thousands of ideas, and of course, um, I think for one year, well, this year we launched about 10, and probably last year we did a little bit more, and the first year we did little bit more. But next year we're trying to tone it down a bit to max of three to four. So we're trying to cut it down a bit because I believe that we're above this magic number, and the customers will start to be confused.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to have too much choice because
Yeah,
that in itself can be a barrier, can't it, for
yeah,
people? I
yeah,
think. Um,
exactly.
And are you finding over time that you're really your skills around fragrance development are changing? So from when you first started and you would develop fragrances, do you find you approach it differently now?
I think my tolerance to a lot of the edginess has changed. Of course, the industry has changed, but for me, also as a collector, I use a lot of fragrances that's commercially out, and my taste evolve. You know, my taste change every year, and it's I think it's a reflection of my collection as well, of our collection as well. I did not enjoy animalic notes 5 years ago. I was like, who would buy this stinky set of fragrances and willingly pay this absurd amount of money? And now here I am creating it.
Yeah, yeah. Perfume people love filth, and I have to say, I've tried your Naked Laundry, which I think was one of the most surprisingly dirty fragrances I think I've ever tried. I tried it. I was like, "Oh, this is a lovely sort of clean laundry mask," and then I was like, "Hold on a second, who threw their dirty underwear in here? Like, where did that come from?" So really
After five
surprising.
minutes, yeah.
Yeah, after
Yeah,
5 minutes, I was like, "Oh
exactly.
my god, I smell like a jock strap. What happened?"
That was exactly the intention of
Mm.
this beautiful fragrance. But it evolves. It evolves and it changes.
Well, one of my friends told me to try it, and they had a very big old smile on their face as they got me to try it. And I should have read into what they were waiting to happen. But I've never smelled that before. That for me was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I think I love that kind of. I don't want to say like it's not trickery. It's like showmanship, isn't it? It's
Exactly,
exciting.
exactly. I mean, this is exactly what I personally want to pay as a fan of a niche industry. This is what I will pay for.
Mm.
And that's exactly what I want to show to our fans of the brand.
Yeah, it's olfactory shock, surprise,
Yeah,
and that's joy, isn't it? I think that's really
yeah.
exciting. I wanted to talk to you a bit about your two collections that you've launched recently. So you've got the I'm gonna this is where my
Oh,
French
intimité.
yeah that's where my French is going to fail me.
Yeah,
There you go. I'm glad you saved me there. Which is meant to be a bit more accessible, softer, and more subtle. And then on the kind of inverse of that, you've got the XJ Extreme, which is pushing the
yeah,
boundaries on fragrance concentration and intensity. Those are obviously two real polar opposites.
yeah.
Was it deliberate to do both of those sort of at the same time, or did that just happen?
It just happened. We wanted to give it a 6 month kind of a different in timing, so people kind of digest a bit. But our partners in the UK really wanted to rush things and get the exclusive. So that's why we have it at have the Intimité as global exclusive, the whole collection as
Mm.
the global exclusive at Harrods. So it was supposed to launch globally in September, so there's more time for it to digest. But it's now only available in UK because of
Wow.
this.
Wow.
But it was not deliberate.
But I think it just shows the versatility of the brand, doesn't it? I think that you've got those two.
I still wanted to contain the idea of niche and originality from my perspective, but still wanted to give it easy accessibility, this effervescent, um, effortless kind of vibe into
Mm.
the O Intimité lineup, where for the extra extreme, I really wanted to push the boundary, the envelope, and see what I can do with unlimited price point because I think we are fortunately, all brands think of practical commercial terms, and fortunately, I am more or less, I shouldn't say this, okay with making little or no money. And I think uh, the Extra Extreme was a project where I have to be proud of this. And you will be surprised how expensive the oils are and how much each bottle costs to manufacture. But it is a pretty crazy, crazy cost burden on our end. But proudly, we really pushed on every angle we can in terms of the olfactive approach, how much we overdosed on oud, the animalic notes, all the natural woods that are terribly expensive. But yeah, I mean, I try to push in every angle that I can in the most overdose possible. This was like a gift for the fragrance nerds from my perspective.
I find that really fascinating. You say you're not interested in the sales and not interested in the financial side of it, because that is obviously the motivator for most brands. Does that allow
I
you to
mean,
create more freely then, do you think?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've seen an article from Business of Fashion a couple months ago saying this brand that is quite popular in the US only, it has 50% margin. He was bragging for 50% margin
Mm,
for a certain amount of sales, and our sales is actually 10x of that, but we always shoot for nowadays only maybe 5%. So
mm.
if you look, our bottom line is about 5% only, and that's exactly, what I shoot for, and nothing crazy, because I mean this is a artistic industry,
Mm.
and I want to be true to the name of niche. I want to proudly call myself niche. And like I said, the easiest way is to use the most expensive things possible and return, and provide you, and present you, with something that I'm proud of, and give you back the love that you deserve.
And it's such a unique collection. Obviously, they're, yeah, as you've mentioned, they're, between 50 and 60% concentration. They're really heavy hitters, very bold. But what really stands out to me is the maceration that you've done in traditional Korean
Oh yeah,
earthenware.
yeah.
Was that also really important for you to sort of celebrate your Korean roots and the traditions with that collection?
Oh, well, we did a lot of R&D, and we were actually wanted to launch the collection last year, and this was what led to the delay. We wanted to find a perfect maceration timing, and I did a lot of course, vessels. I tested with a lot of vessels, a lot of traditional vessels, a lot of Western vessels like oak, or different like wine barrels and different barrels, to make sure that it enriches and it becomes something different, something that we've never checked, or we've never experienced, because this is what the originality should be about. I mean, I
Mm,
should be innovative. Like, where is innovation coming from? And I wanted to give it a try with our ongi, which is where we make kimchi, or where we make all the Korean paste.
mm,
The dipping sauce where you put the Korean barbecue.
yeah.
Those are all made in this ongi, and all the Korean food is made in this ongi. Because all our food is based in maceration, or we say
Yeah.
fermentation. But we tried, this was one of the last bits of our R&D, where, like, I mean, this is gonna stink and this is not going to turn out good, but this was the best experiment that we've done, and it turned out to be beautiful, because it I did not want like a dramatic maceration effect that wine barrels give, because it completely ruined the DNA of the original scent profile, where this one, it kind of made everything very rich, and kind of let go of the alcohol smell, and made everything very smooth, because think of it, it's 50 to 60%. It's a heavy hitter, and it's too much for the nose, but I mean, from my perspective, for all our extra extremes, it's not heavy on the nose. It is crazy long lasting, but it's still tolerant.
What is perfume if it's not just dipping sauce for the body? Really,
Yeah,
that's what it is.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so and that's, you're right, because a lot of the time when you're using oak and wood to macerate things, that changes the character of the
Yeah.
fragrance quite dramatically. So you
Yeah.
consciously wanted to experiment with that, but without changing the profile
Yeah.
significantly.
Exactly. Just making it deeper, richer, and getting rid of this superficial smell of alcohol.
And there's one fragrance in that collection that I think is really, really fascinating and, kind of surprising, is Purple Stain. That has such a vivid point of inspiration. It's pure wine stains on an old leather journal. Now, did that stem from you accidentally knocking over a bottle of wine one day,
No,
or?
this was actually, this happened when I was 24 or 23, and this was a gift from my father, because he always, like, his also habit is writing journals every day, and this is still the habit that I continue to date. And he gifted me the back journal, which was like a cowhide. And in my 20s, I've been drinking every night. I cannot drink anymore, but in my 20s, I've been drinking wine almost every night before I go to bed. And just it happens always. But just one day, as I was writing the journal, I spilled the wine. And of course, I did not want to throw out the entire journal.
Hmm.
Of course, it got the paper wet, and it got the leatherback wet, and soaked with wine, and it left this wine stain. And I still had this in my apartment. Earlier last year, I decided that I want to maybe this was one of just my personal ideas, that I send this to random perfumers, and I decided that I want to send this to Jordi Fernandez, who works in Juvenile. And I told Jordi about the story behind it, how it still has this like distant smell of wine or this like rotten grape, and again, and of course the leather smell. So I sent this to Jordi, and this was his reinterpretation of the story and the literal smell of the leather.
I think it's quite beautiful, really, just picking those slightly unconventional moments from life and then turning them
Yeah.
into, something like that. Do you find that you do that quite a lot with the fragrances, that you're picking just experiences that you've had?
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot. Of course, there are moments in life where special scents are contained in the memory, and of course that has to do with love, because a lot
Mm.
of the strong memory that you still keep to date are about love, right?
Mm.
So, for instance, Drunk Lovers is one where it's about my ex-lover, and I was sharing a brandy with her, and before I go to bed, and things like that. We have these special moments, especially around love, that I cherish to date. That is now translated into a perfume form.
Yeah, and lives on forever through that medium.
And
Um,
I hope she does not figure it out.
we'll keep it a secret. She'll never know. We'll keep it a secret. Um, and then going to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, then, and talking about the Intimite collection.
Yeah,
One of the standouts in that collection for me was Gold Juice, and that's got a really interesting fragrance twist in there, which is durian, the fruit, which is, I think, famous for being banned on a number of public transport systems because it has a very distinct odor. But actually, the fragrance is really, really beautiful. It's kind of
yeah,
green,
exactly.
green. It's
Yeah.
glistening. It's fresh. It's slightly creamy. Why did you want to showcase a durian accord?
This was just one of the proposal that my usual routine with a perfumer. We
Mm.
always think of the stupid, crazy, weird
Yeah.
ideas as per my usual discussion with perfumers, and this was an idea from Mago from Flair, and she was really pushing for this durian note, which she created, and so this is a twist of mango and durian, and I actually fell in love with it at first. I was like, wow, it's got the perfect scent of durian without the dirtiness.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's exactly what I wanted to capture. And it's making a big noise in Korea because not only the durian, but of course a lot of K-pop stars starts using it,
Mm.
and they absolutely love the fragrance.
Right. And I think it's the texture that you really get from there as well, because the durian has kind of like a custardy texture to it. And I think that comes
Yeah.
across in the fragrance, which
Yeah.
is really, really unique.
It's something that I'm very proud of. Of course, I'm not, if it was for the commerciality, I would probably have removed the durian note and only put mango, or try to get rid of the durian photo, as our main campaign photo is like big spiky durian and our perfume in the middle. But I wanted to really embrace this, and I wanted to show the world that I don't care if we are hated. I mean, I know how much we are hated also. How much trolls that we have,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I don't care. And I always tell my marketing team, hate is a form of love. So
Yes. Yeah.
that's how
It's
I see things.
absolutely, it's the indifference that's the worst thing, not the
Exactly.
hate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think also those things like having a durian note, you could another brand could just focus group that out of the marketing and not utilize that, but it creates a point of interest, right? As a
Yeah.
consumer, you might think, well, I really want to try that durian fragrance because I've never heard of that before. So
Yeah.
you're creating that interest, I suppose, by doing that.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a safer choice, because if you really wanted to connect the dots and make people be interested, we would probably experiment with something that people are more familiar with, like croissant, or
Mm,
I don't know, like pain au chocolat, or something that we're more familiar with, rather than durian, I would say.
mm.
But this is just an experiment, and we have a lot of these Halo SKUs where I create just for the sake of artistry, and durian was just one of them.
But that's the difference, isn't it, between Born to Stand Out and another brand? Another brand might have done a croissant or a pastry, but we've seen that
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's not exciting. I suppose before I let you go, I'd love to know what's next for you? What have you got planned for the future?
Oh, we will have, of course, you've seen the Selfridges exclusive
I did, yeah,
that
I've seen
just
that. Yeah.
launched, and then we have a lot of exciting launches until end of the year. You know, this is a peak season of perfume, and where everybody's now starting to wear more and more as the summer is passing. So we will have a lot of EDP or perfume launches until end of the year, and we'll have a lot of limited editions just to make the fans more excited. Limited editions are really just for us to return and give back to the fans. As for next year, we're planning to introduce new category that is completely new, but I'm always interested in challenging the status quo where things have become very, again, redundant, boring.
Hmm.
So I'm introducing a new category, and that's probably in a lifestyle. That's your everyday living.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, I absolutely will because I'm intrigued to see how you're going to shake that up and create something new. Thanks so much for spending the time with me today to talk through Born to Stand Out. It's really great to meet you, and I think what you're doing is, really interesting, and I think the industry needs it. It needs someone to come in and show them how it's done a little bit.
Thank you. Thanks, Thomas.
Well, if that doesn't get you excited about Born to Stand Out, I don't know what will. Right now, they have lots of new exciting launches that are well worth you checking out, and you can find them in a number of stores across the UK, including Selfridges and Harrods or H Beauty. I would really recommend Gold Juice, Purple Stain, and Naked Laundry, but they're all very interesting in their own way, so do check them out. If you want to find out more info about the brand, you can go to their website, borntostandout.com. You can also follow them on Instagram at borntostandout.official. I'll put those in the show notes for you so they're easy to find. That's it for this week. I will be back next week with another exciting new episode, so I hope to see you then. A massive thank you to Carium, our sponsor for this episode. If you know me, you know that I am all about making fragrance and fragrance discovery more accessible. And Carium's innovative AI solution, the Scent Sommelier, offers an entirely new way to explore fragrance by translating scent into language. And you can find out more at www.carium.com. That's KAORIUM.com. As usual, I will hand over to our guest to tell us the fragrance they have an emotional connection with. After all, fragrance is an emotional art form. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can at Making Sense Make Sense. But for now, I'll leave Jun Lim to have the final words, and I will see you next week.
So a fragrance where I have probably the biggest emotional connection or the strongest emotional connection is Blue Jeans by Versace, which is probably one of the cheapest fragrance that you can buy in the market or in duty free is at probably like less than 20 pounds. But it was my first ever fragrance that I bought when I was an early teen. And I have probably 10 bottles of it. I buy it for no reason, but just to uh, go back to the youth, Jun Lim, to the spirit. But it reminded me of why I started this journey, because perfume has this crazy, crazy transformative power of not only changing your mood, your emotions, but um, it gave me so much confidence as a teenager. And that's exactly what you need as a teen, right? And confidence for maybe attracting women or attracting another girl back then. But it gave me confidence to live by um, on a daily basis. And I still want to cherish that memory. And hence I continue to hold all the bottles dearly. So it's Blue Jeans by Versace.